At her sister's wedding, my best friend caught the bouquet. Then walked straight to my table and... No one expected the happiest moment of the wedding to become the moment that changed 3 lives forever. As the bouquet flew across the crowded ballroom, dozens of smiling guests reached into the air, but only one pair of hands caught it. Every camera turned toward the woman holding the flowers. Then, instead of laughing with everyone else, she slowly walked straight toward my table. My heart stopped. Every guest fell silent. I had no idea that what was about to happen would heal a wound I had carried for nearly a decade. Before we begin this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom Story House if you believe kindness, forgiveness, and second chances can change someone's life forever. Your support helps us bring more heartfelt stories to people around the world. The wedding was held on one of those beautiful spring afternoons when the sunlight seemed to make everything glow with hope. The ceremony took place in the gardens of a historic countryside estate, where white roses lined the aisle and soft music drifted through the warm air. Families laughed together, children chased butterflies across the grass, and photographers rushed to capture every perfect moment. It should have been impossible for sadness to exist in such a beautiful place, yet I carried enough of it inside me to fill every empty chair in the reception hall. My name is Rowan Mercer, and although I smiled politely whenever someone looked my way, very few people knew how lonely I truly felt. 8 years earlier I had lost my fiancée in a tragic accident only months before our wedding. Since then I had learned how to survive, but never how to live again. Friends slowly married, built families, and celebrated milestones while I quietly convinced myself that happiness belonged to everyone except me. Only one person refused to give up on me. Her name was Maren Ellis. We had met during our first week of university and had remained inseparable friends ever since. She never judged my silence or forced me to move on before I was ready. She simply stayed, year after year, reminding me that healing was not something measured by calendars but by courage. Even after moving to another city for work, she still called every Sunday afternoon just to make sure I had eaten something decent and gone outside at least once that week. The wedding belonged to Maren's younger sister, Sienna. The entire family welcomed me as if I were one of their own, even though I always felt guilty accepting their kindness. I spent most of the reception seated near the back, enjoying the celebration from a distance while watching people dance beneath strings of golden lights that swayed gently in the afternoon breeze. Maren moved through the room helping guests, fixing decorations, calming nervous relatives, and making everyone smile without ever asking for attention herself. As the afternoon continued, the bride announced it was time for the bouquet toss. Excited guests gathered together on the lawn, laughing and teasing one another. I remained seated, sipping iced tea and enjoying the peaceful chaos from afar. The bouquet soared into the bright blue sky, spinning beautifully before descending into the crowd. Dozens of hands reached upward, but somehow it landed perfectly in Maren's arms. Everyone erupted into applause. Tradition suggested she should blush, laugh, or hold the bouquet high in celebration. Instead, her smile slowly faded into something softer, something filled with quiet determination. Without saying a word, she turned away from the cheering crowd and began walking across the garden. Straight toward me. Every conversation nearby seemed to disappear. Guests watched with curious smiles, assuming they were about to witness a proposal. I wished I could disappear beneath the table. My hands trembled as Maren stopped beside me, holding the bouquet close to her heart. She didn't kneel or perform any grand romantic gesture. She simply placed the flowers gently on the table in front of me and rested her hand over mine. In that single moment, I understood something I had been blind to for years. The bouquet wasn't a promise of marriage. It was a promise that I didn't have to face life alone anymore. The emotion in her eyes carried years of patience, compassion, and silent hope. She had never tried to replace the woman I lost. She had simply stood beside my grief until I was finally strong enough to see the future again. Looking around the garden, I noticed tears in the eyes of several guests. They weren't watching a romantic spectacle. They were witnessing kindness rewarded after years of unwavering loyalty. That evening, after the reception ended, we walked through the estate gardens beneath the warm afternoon sun slowly fading toward evening. The flowers swayed gently in the breeze while distant laughter echoed from the celebration behind us. We talked honestly for the first time in years about fear, loss, regret, and the strange guilt that often follows surviving heartbreak. Marin admitted she had hidden her feelings because she never wanted me to think she was competing with a memory. I admitted I had spent years believing loving someone again would somehow betray the person I had lost. As we continued walking, I realized grief had quietly built invisible walls around my heart. Those walls had protected me from pain, but they had also kept joy outside. Marin had never tried to break them down. She had simply waited patiently outside until I was ready to open the gate myself. Months passed after the wedding, and life began changing in ways I never imagined possible. Small things returned first. Morning walks became enjoyable again. Music no longer reminded me only of loss. I started cooking real meals instead of surviving on convenience. I laughed more often. I visited old friends I had unintentionally pushed away. None of these changes happened because someone rescued me. They happened because someone believed I was worth waiting for. A year later, we returned to the same estate for another family celebration. The gardens looked almost identical, with blooming roses and warm daylight spilling across the pathways. Standing beneath the very tree where we had spoken after the wedding, I asked Marin to spend the rest of her life with me. There were no fireworks, no orchestra, and no dramatic performance. There were simply two people who had learned that true love often arrives quietly, disguised as years of friendship, patience, and unwavering compassion. Looking back now, I realize the bouquet itself never changed my life. It was the person carrying it. Sometimes destiny doesn't arrive through extraordinary miracles. Sometimes it walks across a crowded wedding reception holding a handful of flowers and reminds you that hope has been sitting beside you all along. If this story touched your heart or reminded you that it's never too late to find happiness again, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom Story House. Your support allows these stories of hope, healing, and second chances to reach even more people who may need them today. Special request, please comment, hope always finds us, if you believe genuine friendship can become the greatest love story of all. Life has a remarkable way of surprising those who believe their happiest chapters have already been written. Sometimes the ending we mourn is quietly making room for a beginning more beautiful than we ever imagined. And sometimes, all it takes is one unexpected walk across a wedding garden to remind us that love is patient enough to wait until our hearts are finally ready to receive it.